Welcome to yet another episode of Wellbeing Wednesdays with Harbinder Narula on BW Wellbeing World. My guest today is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati ji, who is renowned spiritual leader, a well-known speaker, and an author who has dedicated her life to a spiritual and humanitarian service. She is the Secretary General of the Global Interfaith WASH Alliance, an organization working towards promoting clean water, sanitization, and hygiene. With a deep commitment to uplifting the humanity and promoting peace, Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati ji is actively engaging in various initiatives focused on education, environmental sustainability, and women's empowerment. She is a beacon of wisdom. She is spreading the message of love. She is talking about peace and harmony, and her transformative presence continues to inspire people on their spiritual journey. So let's hear more from Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati ji. Sadhvi ji, thank you so much for joining us on BW Wellbeing World for our Wellbeing Wednesdays. Gratitude to you for taking out time to have this conversation for our viewers. Sadhvi ji, before I delve into my questions related to certain things around spirituality, would love to know, how did your spiritual journey begin? What led you to become a sadhvi, and how did it all begin?
So, first of all, it's such a joy to be with you. Such a joy to be able to connect with this beautiful community that you're bringing together, of really understanding that wellness isn't just about our six-pack abs or what size clothing we wear, but it's actually an alignment, a balance, a happiness, quite literally, in the body, the mind, the heart, the spirit. So I'm very, very happy to be with you today. And my journey is really a journey of grace. It's not a journey that I can personally take much credit for. I would love to say, oh yeah, I was living in America and I recognized the shallowness of this world and I prayed to God to send me a guru. I would love to tell you that, but the problem is it's not true. The truth is, I wish I had known that a spiritual path existed. I wish I had known that this whole life existed, but I didn't know. I am from America. I grew up in Los Angeles, quite literally in Hollywood. That's where the Hollywood to the Himalayas of my memoir title is. I literally grew up in Hollywood. And I really had the very best that the Western world can offer in terms of opportunity, in terms of privilege, in terms of education, in terms of, a big, beautiful home and the best education and the best possibilities and social life and financial life and all of that. I graduated from Stanford University. I was in the middle of getting my PhD in child neuropsychology. So I had this incredible access to excellence in education, excellence all across the board. And I really thought this is what life has to offer. And as embarrassing as it is now to say 27 years later, I really didn't know that there was something more that life had to offer. It seemed like we struggle, we suffer, We get angry, we get jealous, we feel competitive, we want to have nicer and nicer things, we want to be more and more successful. When we're in a bad mood, we go see a funny movie, we go out to a party or club with friends, and we feel a little better temporarily. And I thought that's what life was. At 25, I came to India with a backpack on just an adventure. I was in the middle of my PhD program, but I was an avid traveler, and I had traveled a lot throughout my 25 years of life. And so I wanted to travel, I wanted to take a break. And when India was suggested, I said, okay. I didn't know anything about India. I wasn't on any kind of a spiritual path. I was raised in a Jewish family in Los Angeles, and there was a cultural connection, but it was never something deeply religious or spiritual. It was never really about God. It was much more about the culture and the family and the ancestors. And so I had never really thought much about God or spirit or anything like that. And come to India, come to Rishikesh. It was the first place we went. I stood on the banks of Ganga, not even knowing that this river was holy. I didn't even know that this is the mother goddess. I just knew it's a beautiful river and it's at the base of beautiful mountains. And I stood there on the banks of Ganga, and I had this extraordinary spiritual experience, this extraordinary transformation, awakening, whatever word you want to use. But suddenly I was in the presence of the divine. And I could see and I could feel and I could know that presence of the divine in everything around me and also in myself. And I realized I am not separate from God. I am not separate from the universe. I am not separate from this river. I'm not separate from anyone or anything. And this experience of complete divine oneness. And so I literally fell to the ground in tears, and I knew this is where I'm meant to be. So that's the very short version of how it all started. That was now 27 years ago. And by God's grace, with Mother Ganga's blessings, I've been able to stay. I've been in India now. September will be 27 years, living at Paramarth with the incredible grace and blessings of my guru, His Holiness Puja Swami Chidanand Saraswati Ji Maharaj, the president of Paramarth. And it's been just such an extraordinary blessing.
Sadhvi ji, what are some of the key principles of spirituality that you follow and which impacted your thought process?
The key principles, I would say, because ultimately, look, spirituality is universal. Spirit is that which flows through all of us and connects all of us. It doesn't matter what name or form you use for the divine. It doesn't matter whether you subscribe to an official religion or you just connect to spirit. It doesn't matter whether you're worshiping God in form, without form, with a name, without a name. None of that matters. So the principles of spirituality, I would say, number one, are to recognize that although we have a body, we are not the body. We are spirit. And That's actually very scientific as well, because what we know scientifically is that the body keeps changing. The cells of my body keep dying and are regenerated. The skin cells every few days, literally every few days, you've got brand new skin. Moving internally into the body, the internal organs take 7 years, 8 years. But every 7 or 8 years, you've got a brand new body from outside to inside. And yet there's a continuity of a sense of self. And so the question is, what is that which doesn't change? I gain weight, I lose weight, I get pimples, I get wrinkles, I grow, I shrink, I get sunburned, my skin peels, but my sense of self is continuous and unbroken. What is that? And so that is spirit. And of course, in a Sanatana Dharma tradition, in the Bhagavad Gita, that's what Bhagavan Krishna tells us, is who you are. That soul cannot be burned by fire, cut by knives, dried in the wind, wet by water. That's who you are. So principle number 1, I would say, is recognizing that we have a body, but we are spirit. And for me, on a personal level, before I go to principle 2, that principle has been so important, because that's also this journey that I was speaking about in terms of Hollywood to the Himalayas, because my physical body took that journey. Yes, I come from Hollywood, I came to the Himalayas, but the reason that I actually wrote my whole book, that I wrote my memoir of Hollywood to the Himalayas, was not just to share my physical journey, but it was because that mindset shift from what I call the Hollywood way of thinking, which says you are your body. You are your size, your shape, your color, your race, your religion, your bank account, your title, your name, your fame, your success, your relationships. That is who you are. And when we identify as that, we suffer. We suffer because we never feel like we are enough. We never feel like we're right. We're not beautiful enough. We're not successful enough. We're not happy enough. We're not smart enough. So we're constantly suffering. And then we suffer anger and greed and resentment and jealousy and all of these things that pollute and steal our lives. And the Himalayan way of thinking is what I consider the spiritual way of thinking. It says you have a body, but you're not the body. You are the soul, you are the spirit. And so that is really, in my life, what I've seen, the end of suffering. If we shift that mindset from the Hollywood way of thinking, which sadly exists not only in Hollywood, but also in Delhi and Mumbai and Bangalore, and it doesn't matter where you are, most big cities anywhere in the world. By God's grace, thankfully, our villages still are traditional in a lot of ways, but in metropolitan cities, that which we consider sophisticated thinking, we're all stuck in that Hollywood way of thinking. And this is where we need to shift to that Himalayan way of thinking, that spiritual way of thinking. So principle number 1, you have a body, but you are a spirit. Principle number 2 is that we have the power to choose love and to choose peace, regardless of any external circumstance. We are not victims of our situation. Most of us, if you say, oh, what's wrong, kya hua aapko? People will say, acha ye ho gaya, wo ho gaya, this person said this person did that, paristiti aise ho gaya. But we are not like light bulbs that paristiti just turns on and off. We don't go on and off with the external situation or with someone else's words. And what spirituality does is it really teaches us how to anchor in what you can think of as swastiti, our internal personal experience, rather than to be like the ball in, a pinball machine that somebody else pulls back and now the ball just goes all over the place hitting. Most of us live like that. And so we have to realize we have the power, whatever's going on outside. If you want to live in peace and in love, which is really the core teachings of spirituality and the core way of being happy, that comes from within you, not from outside. And principle number 3, there's so many, we could do this all day, but I'll give you one more. I'd say that the third key principle for me that's been also so powerful is to shift our question in life, our core life question, from asking what for me to ask what through me. I was raised, as so many of us are, in financially successful places, financially wealthy and prosperous situations and educational systems and culture and society. We're really raised to ask ourselves, what for me? Mere liye kya? Why should I do that? What am I going to get out of it? Think for yourself. Put yourself first, right? This is what we're taught. Assertiveness training, right? People pay money to learn how to put themselves first, like learn how to become more assertive. Jo chahta hai wo le lo. But what I've seen is that's not actually the path to happiness. It certainly isn't the path to spirituality. The path that I have seen is to ask, what through me? Mere madhyam se kya? How can I be an instrument, a tool in the hands of the divine? And again, this is something that transcends spiritual traditions. If you look at so many of the saints and the sages and the yogis and the mystics of so many of the world's traditions, you see really similar teachings. And this is something that mystics and sages across the world have realized for thousands and thousands of years. And it's why so many of the mystics and sages, again, across different religions, have been simple beings, walking barefoot and chanting God's name and living in ecstasy. Because they've learned that life is not about accumulating and acquiring and attaining more and more. But it's actually about allowing that flow of the divine to just flow through us. And we serve and we give. And not only is that a deep spiritual principle, but it's also what I would call a principle for life happiness.
Sadhvi, this is, while you were talking, something really opened up for me. And that was that I've always been talking about or trying to understand about unattachment, and what really opened up for me, and this goes back to the first statement that you made, that it is not about what clothes you wear, what size of clothes you wear, what you look like. But this body, if who I am is a soul or a spirit, then this body is the clothes that I wear. And if this body which is with me all the time. I am nowhere without this body when I'm in the physical form. If this is something that does not go with me when I transcend, then everything else is out of question. So why should I be attached to everything else? So that was a thought that came to my mind, and thank you so much for opening up this for me. Uh, Sadhviji, when we speak about God and divine, the first thing that comes to our mind is religion, you know, and which is the organized form of, if I can think, spirituality or faith. You know, how can we differentiate between spirituality and religion? And the reason I'm asking you this is because you have this knack of explaining things with so much of simplicity, and if you can share your views on this, which can make us understand this.
Sure. So, in theory, in a best case scenario, in an ideal situation, religion and spirituality would be one and the same. Religion would simply be different paths to spirituality. If we say spirituality means connecting to spirit, capital S spirit, that divine spirit that flows through all of us, religion would just be different paths. Like in Rishikesh, I live on the banks of Mother Ganga. But there's an innumerable, infinite number of ways to get into Ganga. You can walk down the steps, the beautiful marble steps at Parmarth Nikatan, where I live. You can walk up to Ramjula, and you can go in on the sandy beach from Ramjula. You can walk up to Lakshmanjula, past Lakshmanjula, jump into Ganga from a big rock. Doesn't matter. Ganga doesn't care. Ganga's not giving extra blessings to people who do, a triple flip off of a rock into Ganga rather than people who are walking down steps. She doesn't care. All that matters is get in. Get in. Dubki lagao. In the same way, if we realize that connection to the divine, to that infinite, beyond name, beyond form, supreme reality, that connection to that is the goal, then religions would simply offer us different ways in. Different texts, different books, different names, different forms, different languages, different stories. Doesn't matter, just different ways of getting in. The dilemma has become that religion, sadly, in many cases, has become much more wrapped up in money, in power, in politics, and sadly, in too many situations across the world, religion gets co-opted to make people do things that have nothing to do with God and everything to do with someone else's power. So for example, if I want to be king of in charge of a big plot of land with lots of resources, and I say to people, go out and kill people so I can be in charge. Nobody's going to do it. Why would people risk their own lives just so I can have more power? Koine karega. But if I say to them, those other people are against God. Those other people are sinners. They are wrong. God, they are enemies of God. God wants you to go and remove them. God will reward you. Well, then people do it. So religion, very sadly, over not even hundreds, but thousands of years, sadly, since, the Crusades and before. Religion has been utilized as a way, not of connecting people to God, but of acquiring power and money and resources and land for people who use God's name just to get material power. So what's happened is people have become jaded. They've become skeptical. People don't want to become part of organized religions as much these days as they used to, because they say, well, though, what's the point? Why do I need religion? If religions are just fighting each other, and religions are starting wars, and religions are killing people, and religions are harming people, and, religious traditions and norms are creating suppression and oppression and discrimination. People don't want to be part of that anymore. And so what you're seeing a lot these days is people saying, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. And what people mean by that is, I want to connect to spirit. I want to connect to an experience, an energy of divinity. But I don't want to be co-opted. I don't want to be handed down a list of to-dos or not to-dos. I don't want more dogma. And this is where, as religious people, as religious leaders, I feel like it's really important that we take back religion. When I hear people say, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual, I understand, but to me it feels like we as religious people have therefore failed in some way, that we've allowed religion to become too associated with politics and power and money and all of that. And we really need to take religion back from dogma to dharma, and to really enable it to be something that connects people to the divine. That's not about what am I going to get, but is about how can religion be a bridge, bringing people closer and closer to the divine, to the creator, but also to all of creation.
I think that's a very beautiful thing, and a very beautiful distinction that you've created. I think it is also, a responsibility of the spiritual leaders to not make religion so ritualistic, and and to not kind of present it in a manner that the faith that you follow must be followed by anyone who looks up to you.
Well, rituals, the thing with rituals is, rituals themselves can be very beautiful when we realize that they are there to make us spiritual. The ritual is not for God. The ritual is for us. God is not sitting there saying, God, I wish someone would give me some milk. I wish someone would give me some rice. I wish someone would give me some ghee. I wish someone would give me flowers. But the Bhagwan has made all of that. God is enjoying the flowers on the vines where God put them. God is not waiting that we should pluck the flowers and then offer them. The point of rituals is to make us spiritual. And so for people who use those, no problem. I mean, it's like, think about in your family, in your marriage, right? Coming home with flowers, or, taking your wife out for a beautiful weekend someplace. It's a ritual. It's a ritual. The love is there. The flowers don't create love. The weekend away doesn't create love. The poem doesn't create love. But what they do is they pull us out of our distraction. They pull us out of our sense of being lost in our careers and our errands and all of the other things that we go through. And they're ways of just reconnecting us and reminding us that we are in love. If there's no love, the flower is useless. If there's no love, a weekend away is useless.
Absolutely.
When love already exists, those things are used sometimes by some people in order to reconnect, in order to remember. And so what I always say about rituals is, first of all, make sure that your love for God is already there, because if not, it's useless. And if offering flowers, if offering water reminds you every day to sit and connect with God, beautiful. But if you don't need that, and you remember to just sit and to meditate and to connect with God anyway, also beautiful. Either way.
Sadhvi, you use the word distraction and you also use the word meditation. You know, a lot of us want to have that divine connection, and I understand it can come through consciousness and mindfulness. You know, but we get distracted. You know, and we get distracted because we are also living a materialistic life outside. How can we remain on the path of consciousness? You know, because I think that is the way that could probably lead us to a spiritual thought process.
So that's a great, great question. And it's probably the key question and the key path to spiritual growth, but also to wellness in our minds, in our hearts, and in our lives. When you speak about being conscious, it means being aware, being present. It means being here now. Most of us, our physical bodies are here, but we are not. So we sit to meditate, but instead we make shopping lists in our mind. Or we go to the mandir. We go to the Gurdwara. We go to all of our holy places. But as we sit there, our minds are going with our to-do lists, or our minds are going with kisi ne kya kaha as we entered, and kisi ne humko kaise dekha. It was nice, it wasn't nice. It was respectful, it wasn't respectful. What somebody's wearing. Our minds are all over the place. And the dilemma with that is we are constantly distracted. We're not anchored, we're not grounded. And so our concentration is awful. So most of us are really struggling with trying to achieve anything. Any project you want to do, any creative endeavor, music, art, writing, reading, having a deep conversation. Most of us aren't able to do that anymore because we are so constantly distracted. Our phones are beeping, buzzing, we're always picking it up, and our minds, our brains are getting adapted to being constantly distracted. And it's wreaking havoc on our mental peace. It's wreaking havoc on our relationships. It's wreaking havoc on our spiritual experience. So that's where our meditation practice is so important. Every day, ideally twice a day, morning and evening, even if it's only 10 minutes, 15 minutes, have a practice in which you sit down and you bring the awareness, the concentration, the attention to the breath, to a mantra, to a word of the divine. It doesn't matter. But bring it to one thing. And whenever the mind wanders, just bring it back. Bring it back. Bring it back. Because what that does is it trains the mind to be anchored, to be grounded, to be present, to be here. But we also should practice during the day. So a lot of us have taken on this multitasking thing, and we feel very good about ourselves that we can do 2-3 things at once. So we are walking from our car to our office. What do we do along the way? We check all of our messages, right? And we get very happy. कि अच्छा थोड़ा रास्ते पे मैंने सारे WhatsApp देख लिया. Now, aside from the fact that it's actually physically hazardous because people fall and trip and bump into things, it deprives us of the opportunity for a walking meditation. It deprives us of the opportunity to actually be present. Sure, you may have gone through all of your WhatsApps, but you missed every moment of that walk. You missed the flowers, you missed the sunshine, you missed the sky, you missed the faces of everybody who was walking past you. You missed the flow of your breath. You missed the feeling of your foot upon the earth. And so stop multitasking. Whatever you're doing, just do that. If you need to go through your WhatsApp messages, no problem. Sit down, dedicate a certain amount of time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it may be. Do it and then finish it. But don't be doing it while you're doing something else. You're having a conversation with a loved one. It's so tragic these days. You watch people have conversations, and one of the two people at least is doing this. Ha ha, bolo bolo mi sun raha. Anyway, like whatever happened to eye contact, whatever happened to real communication, ha 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 ha, mi sun rahi hu. Although we don't just want that someone's ears are with us. There's so much more to a conversation than just, can I hear your words? So we need to really practice every minute, every moment. Be here. You're eating your meals. These days you see people eating their meals and they're sitting right in front of their phone. कुछ देख रहे हैं, कुछ सुन रहे हैं, किसी से बात कर रहे हैं. We're missing our meals. The reason we pray before we eat is because that food is also God. That food is the divine. There's all kinds of scientific research these days talking about the importance, not just of what you eat, but of your mental state while you are eating. Turns out you are much better off eating even something like French fries if you are happy and peaceful and grateful than drinking a green protein smoothie if you're angry and restless and stressed. So utilize every moment that you have during the day to be present. When you're working, work. Checking your WhatsApps, check your WhatsApps. But when you're eating, eat. You're having a conversation, have a conversation. You're walking, walk. Be present and conscious and aware and mindful every moment of the day. And you will see it will transform you. And that morning and evening meditation is that which will train your mind to be able to do that. Because that which you learn in your meditation, then you're able to take into your life.
I think, it's so beautiful because, what I'm hearing is that every moment and every action of yours must be meditative. Because even if you're eating food, concentrate and focus on that. make it meditative. You know, secondly,
Absolutely.
spirituality also awakens a lot of what is inside of us. We we uh, we it it can it give us the power to make a change or transform things or people around us. How can our thoughts on the integration of what are your thoughts on using spiritualism towards things that are really important to make this world a better place to live? For example, women equality. For example, the social justice, the environment, the climate change, our sensitivity to respond to these natural changes that are
Absolutely.
happening around us. How can we do that?
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful question. And this is spirituality. Spirituality is not in a box. Spirituality is not just me and my mala, or me and my mandir, or me and my yagna. Spirituality is in life. That which you do sitting on a meditation cushion or on a yoga mat, that is what you are supposed to carry with you into the world. So in our meditation, in our prayers, in our puja, in our japa, in our yoga, we are connecting with that divine spirit. Again, however we name it, however we conceive of it, it doesn't matter. But we are connecting with that divine. So when I stand up, well, that connection still exists. That's the whole point. Now I'm more aware of it. I am not separate from the trees, from the rivers, from the mountains, from every single species with whom we share this planet. We are taught Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. The world is a family. I mean, that's the beautiful mantra and motto that our Honorable Prime Minister has used for this year's G20 also. It's such a core tenet of our spiritual tradition. We are one family. It doesn't say all human beings. It says all. Well, that means every species. It means every blade of grass. It means every drop of water. It means every sister and brother, human and non-human, who live in this universe, on this planet. Because Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam literally means Vasudha is Mother Earth. She's the goddess, the earth goddess. It means we are her family. So we are the family of Mother Earth, of this goddess of the earth. If we are that family, well, we need to protect it. We need to preserve it. When we are taught that the Creator has created the earth, well, as we love and worship and celebrate the Creator, simultaneously, if we are really pious and really devoted in whatever religion, by nature, we would protect the creation then. Think about it. Let's say your loved one, your wife, your mother, your father, your child, your brother, your sister, makes you something. They paint you a picture. They bake you a cake, whatever it may be, and they come and they present it to you. And you take that and you throw it on the floor and you stomp up and down on it. I mean, could you even imagine? Even if you didn't like the cake, you would eat it anyway, because your loved one made it. Even when our children are very young and they do scribbles on papers and it's nothing, fear to be, we put it up on the refrigerator, we frame it, we put it in the house. Why? Because our children made it. because we love that creator. Therefore, we love the creation of the creator. Our children write us poems and we say, oh, you're so beautiful, what a great poem. We send the video to all our friends, we post it on social media. Our children sing songs, even Gane bhi aate nahi hai, doesn't matter. We love the creation because we love the creator. And in the same way, if we really, by any path, any way, any tradition, if we love the divine, well, we must, therefore, love and care for and preserve and serve the creation of that creator. And whether we go into it spiritually or whether we go into it scientifically, we know we are not separate from the creation. Quantum physics is now telling us the same thing that our sages and our rishis told us thousands of years ago, which is that we are the creators of the universe, of the world, that what we do, what we think, how we live, is impacting the entire world. Now quantum physics is talking about quantum entanglement, right? Iska matlab kya hai? That we are all connected. Entangled matlab connected. String theory. String theory means the universe is connected. If I pull on one end of a string over here, it's going to impact somebody over there. Well, we know this. This is the core basis of theories of karma, of theories of dharma and duty, responsibility, is that it's not just to us, it's to all of the creation. So even if you're not religious, if you believe in science, we are connected. COVID showed us this, right? Otherwise you think, why would the dietary habits of people in some city in central China, why would that matter to us? ठीक है, जो भी खाना है खाने दो उनको. Why does that impact us? And even if we tried to change their dietary habits, they would say, this is our freedom, this is our right. जो हम खाना चाहते हैं खाने दो हमको. But then, when those dietary habits of eating certain animals, of having markets with certain animals in that market, end up creating a ripple impact to every single corner of the globe, well, then suddenly we start thinking about, really, is it okay for people to continue to have dietary habits like that if we are suffering because of it? And in the same way, we start to really think about, is it really okay for us to be eating, dressing, shopping, traveling in ways that are having ripple impacts all over the world, on the rainforests, on the air, on the water? Do we have that right? I don't think we do. We talk about human rights, but what about human responsibility? Yes, we have human rights, but they're not rights in a vacuum. They are rights that go hand in hand with human responsibility. And this is where our spiritual traditions give us, whether you look at it in a way of a 10 commandments, or you look at it just in terms of yam and niyam of the yoga tradition. However you look at it, spirituality is constantly giving us the opportunity to have experiences that make us live according to Dharma. So that it's not just, we follow that because it's dogma, but we live it because we experience it. We understand कि yam और niyam को पालन इसलिए करना Because through my practice of yoga, I realize we are one. So obviously I'm going to live according to nonviolence, according to truthfulness. So this is the actual result of spirituality. If you stand up from your cushion or your mat and you are living in ways that it's harming the planet or anyone on the planet, your spirituality is very shallow. Your rituals are not going to have an impact. The point of all of that is to connect us to the divine, that creator and that creation.
Sadhvi, how important is the formation or curating or cultivating a community to contribute towards the sustenance and enrichment of one's spiritual journey?
Great. Yeah, community is super important. We talk a lot about Sangha. That Sangha is super, super important for many reasons. First of all, we are formed by the association we keep. Hanging out with people who drink and do drugs and swear and, sleep till noon and stay awake till 3 o'clock in the morning partying, hang out with them long enough and it's going to impact you. Even if you don't necessarily also start drinking and doing drugs, nonetheless, it's going to impact your mind. It's going to impact your way of thinking. Watch how your dreams change. Watch how your thoughts change. Watch how your values change. We are impacted by those around us. We are energetic beings. Stand in front of an air conditioner for a long time, you're going to get cold. Stand in front of a heater for a long time, you're going to get hot. Stand in front of somebody screaming and yelling long enough, your nervous system is going to start to respond. Your blood pressure, your heart rate, your thoughts, you're going to be impacted even if you're not angry. You stand in that energetic field long enough, it's going to impact you. So our community, that Sangha, is really important. We talk about Sat Sang, being in the association of truth. In Buddhism, right, they talk about, I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha, refuge in the Buddha. Those are the three things that we take refuge in: the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. So they've put community right up there with the Buddha himself and the Dharma. All of our traditions really emphasize that community because we know energetically it impacts us. It impacts our thoughts, it impacts our behaviors, and therefore it impacts our lives. These days in mental health and mental wellness, there's a lot of emphasis on the power of community and the importance of community. We're suffering an epidemic of loneliness these days. People are, more and more on their devices, thinking that my friends on Facebook somehow can take the place of my friends in real life. And they can't. But we're seeing people more and more all over the world withdraw into their isolation, into their cocoons, and the internet is making it possible. You can stay busy all day long online and forget that you haven't actually seen another human being in 2 weeks. And so we're suffering an epidemic of loneliness. And what we know about loneliness is not only does it increase depression and anxiety, but it also lowers our immunity. People with more loneliness, people with fewer social connections, actually have lowered immunity. They respond, for example, to the vaccine when the COVID vaccine was being given, they had less robust responses to the vaccine. Imagine the number of close friends you have impacts your ability to benefit from a vaccination. This link between our social communities, our networks of people who really matter to us, not like work colleagues or work networks in that way in terms of contracts and whatnot, but actually people who love us, actually people we love, people we can rely on, people we can talk to, people we can be ourselves with and open our hearts with, people we connect with spiritually. That is one of the most powerful and robust indicators of physical immunity and mental health. So regardless of whether we're looking for spiritual enlightenment, physical health, mental well-being, community is showing up more and more in all of our studies and all of the science to be absolutely critical, which of course, again, religiously and spiritually, we've been told for thousands of years.
Sadhviji, it is 9 o'clock. Would you allow me to ask you 2 more questions?
Sure.
Thank you. Sadhviji, one of the questions that comes to my mind is that we talk about creating self-worth because that is the first step towards creating self-love. But now when we create self-worth, the metric of success that most people have created for themselves is power and money.
Yes.
How can we create self-worth by ensuring that we still do not give up on our seva bhav?
Beautiful, beautiful. We need to do this collectively. Yes, individually, but also collectively, because we get a lot of constant feedback from our communities. So if I get a raise at work and I show up the next day to a wedding or a party or a dinner in a brand new Mercedes, everybody's going to say, wow, 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 kya baat hai, aap to bade aadmi hai. And I'm going to feel like I am worthy. And that just reinforces my own internal sense that my self-worth is based on money and power. So first we have to begin internally, but it needs to shift into our communities as well. And I think the important place to start is really very honestly and simply to ask people, are you actually happy? Are you actually in this moment, this exact moment, do you feel like you have enough? Is it enough yet? Are you satisfied? If you never earned or achieved or acquired another thing again as long as you live, is it enough? And for most people, the answer is no. And whether we're looking for more money, more possessions, more followers on Facebook, more power in a political sense, whatever it may be. For most of us, the answer to that question would be no. And it's a really important question because the answer is always no. It means it doesn't actually matter how much you get. Most of us think, oh, I'll just one more thing, just one more. But it's never enough. And you look at people who are billionaires, and they're still ready because it's never enough. Because the actual happiness and the actual joy and the actual peace and the actual meaning in life we're looking for doesn't come from any of those things. And so first we need to really acknowledge that within ourselves and just ask yourself, Are you actually happy right here, right now, with what you have? Is it enough? And if not, you can be sure it never will be. And then you ask yourself, which were the moments in your life in which you felt the most fulfilled, deeply? Not ego fulfillment, not ki sabhi thaliyan baja rahe mere liye, but deeply, deeply fulfilled. Kyunki thaliyan kitni der tak? 30 seconds? Even a standing ovation lasts, what, a minute, 2 minutes, then it's over. What were those moments in your life when you felt really deeply fulfilled? Don't take my word for it. Ask yourself. And what most people will find is they are moments when you were deeply connected in some way to creation, to the creator and to creation. It might have been a spiritual moment in a temple, in a gurdwara, in a mosque, in a church. It doesn't, on the banks of Ganga, on a mountaintop, seeing the stars, seeing a sunrise. It might have been seeing your child, your baby's face for the first time, looking in the eyes of your newborn child. It could be anything. But what you'll most likely notice is that those moments of deep fulfillment are moments of connection. Maybe it was a moment when you were able to really help another person. You were feeding people, you were serving people, you were treating people. Ask yourself, were your most fulfilling moments when you bought a new car? When you got promoted to a new office? When you cashed a check? Or were they something else? And once we really understand that inside of ourselves deeply, and by the way, the science proves it as well. They've done great scientific studies on happiness. Do we have more happiness when we spend money on ourselves, or do we have more happiness when we spend money on others? And over and over and over again, the studies have proven, and these are studies being done in big universities, academic institutions across America, across Europe, I mean, all over the world. Not being done in, yoga studios. They're being done in Ivy League universities. And what they're showing over and over again is that when we do something for others, we are always much, much happier than when we do it for ourselves. But again, don't take my word for it. Ask yourself, what were your most fulfilling moments? And then let the achievement of more and more of those moments become your definition of success. Because if what we're looking for is fulfillment, then why would I define fulfillment by something that I've just proven isn't fulfilling anyway? And once I understand that in myself, then we start to reflect that in our communities. So then when someone I know makes a bunch of money, instead of falling all over myself in praise, maybe I praise them and support them more when they do things that I know are actually meaningful to them. Maybe I support them more for who they are as a being, for the garden they planted, for the Loki they brought me that came from their garden, than for the new Mercedes that they bought. And we start slowly, slowly as communities to really support each other for doing things that are meaningful to us. And I support, when I start to appreciate their children, not because they got into some top-notch university or they got some high-paying job, but because their child just spent their vacation planting trees in the Amazon, or in an ashram doing seva, or in Africa providing medical care, or in the villages of India providing medical care. But we start to give our support and our praise for things that actually are making a difference rather than for material success.
Fantastic. I mean, that was such brilliant, explanation of seva bhav and self-worth that can lead you to self-love. It has been such a beautiful conversation. I couldn't thank you more for taking our time to create this powerful message for our community. Some of the takeaways that I have from the initial conversation, which were really, really powerful for me, were that you have the power to choose love and peace. And instead of being a victim or feel that you're a victim of your environment, you have the power to create an environment that you wish for. That was a very, very powerful thought that I, understood. Second was internalization is all about creating your personal internal experiences, and you don't have to be like a pendulum moving from or the pinball experience that you shared, and the third was which was the most powerful, was that shift the question in life from what for me to what from me, and to in fact think about what is it that can be through me. आप जरिया कैसे बन सकते हैं? How can you be the medium? With these thoughts, I want to just express gratitude to you for sharing all this with me and through me for the community. Thank you.
So wonderful to be together, and so much love to you all and to the whole beautiful team and community.
Thank you so much.